right, welcome to the latest episode of Enterprise in Mind. Got the whole crew here. Hope everybody's had a wonderful 2 weeks since the last episode. Like usual, we start the meeting and we start talking, and then we go, oh crap, we should hit record before we get too deep into this. So Alex has an update on something that he mentioned a few episodes ago, but honestly, I forgot about it. So it could be a great refresher for things that you might find yourself in. I know I've been thinking about this kind of stuff a lot lately. So, Alex, why don't you cue us up with what you want to talk about, and we'll do our thing.
Sure. Also noting for those who are watching on YouTube or other video platforms, the black sweater crowd. High five, guys. Wait, we're so
technically,
coordinated.
mine is
use a t-shirt
on the court warm up.
It's a dark name.
It's a dark name. Oh, all right.
This is very us. This is a thing. No, you're wrong. Okay, I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. All right. Yeah. So the thing I mentioned probably a couple episodes back was talking about using ChatGPT as a source for a 90-day plan for a new role. Actually been at this company now like 6 months. So it kind of did an updated version of it, of saying like, with my current role description and what put together a 30, 60, 90, and 180 checklist for myself, like a punch list of things I should know at this point. And had to kind of rephrase it a few times until I got to the point of like, I need you to be asking me questions, and then basically provided a space so I can answer it. So that was kind of became included in one of the prompt. And then I did a second version of it, which actually I haven't read yet, which was fill in what you know for the answers. And if you don't know, put in industry best practices and note where it's an industry best practice versus knowledge. I haven't really told ChatGPT that much for context with my role, so what it spat out was surprisingly good, though. I've asked enough technical questions that I noticed a little bit of the tool stack, so I was able to actually ask them some of those questions, and mentioned like, look over my LinkedIn, that kind of stuff in the past. So it does know those details of kind of my general role. I don't think my current role has much listed, but I know with my previous roles, at least, to be able to kind of put together what a media manager, digital media kind of thing role is. It was really good, to be honest. It lined out everything on it was solid, to be honest. All of it was a good, relevant question. A few of those things were, yeah, I tried that, it failed, and yeah, I kind of forgot about it, never picked it up again, or went down this path and haven't really been able to finish it up, or, that's a new area that, general kind of learning kind of thing of like learning new software, new platforms of, I know the bare basics, I can log in, but I'm by no means could do the job at a company. Like if it was just asked me to do it, I could figure it out, but I haven't put myself through those paces yet. So it'd be good to test myself that way too. So probably any place where you're at, it'd be an interesting test of saying like, someone who's 90 days in this job, or a first 90-day plan for someone in my role, what's your first 90 days? And it's a lot of meet and greets and kind of stuff that, yeah, I did the main ones and then kind of skipped over the rest. And then, may have talked about what my team does, but I didn't really hear about how their team could use my team, or, at least rekindle that relationship to say like, hey, how can we help each other out? Kind of partnership kind of stuff too. So
one of the things I really like about this, Alex, first, I very much hope that we share the 2 prompts that you used or revised and refined over time, because I'd love to play around with them. But what I was thinking about is with your, first 90-day plan for someone in your role, if you're lucky or you find a good team or a good hiring manager, you're going to have something like a 90-day plan. Sometimes it's just the team's new, it's not feasible.
Sure.
And so this is a good substitute to just help you get focused. The other thing I was thinking about is, my role over the last year, 2 years has continuously changed, but without a formality to it. It was more subtle. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I find myself doing completely different tasks than I was 2 months ago or even 2 weeks ago, because of the nature of transformation in the digital world at this point. And so having a sort of help me through the first 90 days of this new role I find myself in, and give me a series of questions to be able to think through, how has my role changed? What are those subtle things? That's such a cool tool for doing some self-reflection and helping orient when there's constant change.
Absolutely.
I've been meeting with a leader in my job. Kind of fell into it, like, but he has this idea of what he calls a Perkins menu, or like a Waffle House menu, or whatever you want to, whatever your regional variant is,
Denny's.
right? For like a diner menu that is mostly just pictures, right? And essentially what it's set up where you have 5 columns across your PowerPoint, and you get like a little one sheeter, right? And those 5 columns are the 5 biggest skill sets that you have, right? And then you have 3 or 4 images representing whatever projects you've worked on before that align to that skill set. That would be like the case studies that you would bring up in an interview, or just sort of general conversations about, like, yeah, I'm a strategic leader and here are the things that have, proven why I'm a strategic leader, right? And it also prevents you from having just that huge chunk of text that so many people go into, right? Where if you have an image and then a single bullet point that has to like only cover, a half an inch on the screen, you're naturally going to be much more abbreviated with what it is. And essentially all it is that menu of options for when you're in an interview or performance thing, to be able to say, this is what I'm good at, here's why I'm good at it, and here's the example that backs up my experience in that. So his challenge to me was to do that, right? So Alex, like, kind of similar to what you were saying with your reviews, I've also gone through and said, okay, ChatGPT, Gemini, here's a sort of anonymous version of my resume. Here's how I talk about myself and my experience. What am I missing? What am I underplaying? What am I overstating? What should I include in this concept of a Perkins menu, to move forward? And not only has that helped me refocus my own sort of personal narrative, and how I'm presenting myself moving forward, but also, to your point, Ruthie, like I was placed into a role a little more than a year ago that I wasn't super stoked about. And but I needed to track, okay, well, I mean, mostly just for me, because nobody was asking for it, but for me and the way that I like to work and challenge myself, I needed to know that I was making an impact, right? So when it came up to that year point, it was, all right, is Dave worth the time? Yes or no? Like, let's put those things together and do that. So sort of a similar thing, and related thing, I should say.
And the thing I was thinking
Using
about with that one too is similar to the 90-day, going through that exercise periodically, whether or not you've had a specific role change or an informal one, or things are just shifting around.
Mhm.
That's such it's a tangible way in which you can say, okay, here's what I'm good at, or here's where I think I want to focus. What have I done in those areas? Or you could reverse it and go, hey, here's the things that I've done recently. How do we think about those in a new way? Because as we evolve in our careers, we have to sort of shift our intuitions about what we think, like, not just shift our intuitions about what we think we're good at, but also there's, dare I say, an identity change around there. Like, I think I'm this,
Right.
but oh shoot, the last 4 projects I've worked on have actually shown me that I'm this other thing, and that might be a better jumping off point to where I want to go next. That's so cool. I love these two.
Alex, you're thinking. I can see that you're thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, I'm terrible at poker, right? Killing me. No, I was just thinking about this in a future forward statement. And one, Dave, for the kind of the resume review kind of
Yeah.
piece, especially for those out there who are kind of looking at jobs, you could also ask it, since it has a rather large wealth of knowledge, of saying, look at similar job descriptions that have been posted, and then what are key bullet points that I'm missing, or underemphasizing, something like that, because, or what language do they use that's different than mine? Because you might be using kind of in-house knowledge and phrasing
Right.
versus industry standard or new phrasing. I mean, we've talked before about how like it used to be called e-marketing, then it became internet marketing, online marketing, digital marketing. I mean, it changes all the time. Like,
Right.
And marketing, calling it.
oh my God.
Yeah.
There will be a day sometime where someone says the similar phrase of saying, instead of the Facebook.com, drop the, keep the Facebook.com. Someone else will be like, AI, that's too long. Drop I'll be something else.
Yeah. It's just intelligence now because we've outsourced it all.
Yeah, it's not artificial. It's all hybrid now. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of an optional extra like next step that I had fun playing around with along these lines was well, Ruthie, to your point, the here are the things that these projects have pushed me toward,
Mhm.
right? The question for me was, okay, I've been in these roles. If I want to be known for something else, how can I sort of re-steer myself toward the thing that I want to be
Oh,
known
that's
for,
cool.
or have people, recognize me as like, okay, Dave's our guy for that particular topic. And less so this other thing. I went into ChatGPT and I asked, and Gemini, I do my testing in both environments, just to see who does what and who does things better. But I asked them, okay, for these next roles that we've talked about that I might be interested in, create a list of sort of day-to-day activities related to those roles, and then break out of those day-to-days what can be replaced by AI, what can be AI assisted, and what is purely human. Because then I want to double down on the purely human and, lean into the AI assisted stuff. Right. Because if I'm trying to pitch myself as something that is fully going to be automated very quickly, then, that's just a losing formula. Right. So then how can I rep those things slightly differently? Really?
I really like this approach, and I continuously appreciate your comments about I want to focus on what's human and I want to double down on those elements.
Mm-hmm.
The project that I've been embarking on my minimal spare time in the last month or so has almost been the reverse of how much of what I do right now can I automate.
Yeah.
And my motivation for this is I am spending more time on work than what I want. Right? I want to
Yeah.
be spending more time on life things. I tend to uh, I'm not quite in workaholic status, but if it were a scale, I'm going to be closer to the workaholic than sort of somebody who just sits idle. And so one of the things I've been thinking about is, hey, if I want to clock out at 3 every day so I can pick up my kids and actually spend time with them during the waking hours when we're all
Right.
sort of coherent and not crabby, how can I maintain a similar level of output with that sort of truncated time frame? And so I've been pushing myself to, okay, how can I create an agent that can assist these tasks? What are the things I can just complete? Like, how can I hand off the things that I'm doing? Where am I spending too much time? Maybe I'm overthinking things. Maybe I'm just so, yeah, overthinking is usually the situation. And how
Yeah.
can I hand that off or just get better at let's just do good enough? where it is less important.
That's interesting, and I'm glad that you're trying that, because yeah, we all need balance. I think the one thing for me, when I got over feeling the need to respond immediately, and I know for a lot of people that can be a huge endeavor to get over that. That worked wonders for my stress level. So like I check my email maybe 2 or 3 times a day throughout the day, and that's it. And then that forces me to prioritize what has come in and what doesn't. And I usually check it right before lunch, and I prioritize lunch over everything. So if you're backing up against lunch, then only the important stuff gets done. I'm talking what works for me. You find your own thing. But like, I remember talking to some executives recently, and they were all talking about what granola bars they keep in their desk because they skip lunch. And that is such an anathema to me. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, and if you need a meeting with me over lunch, guess what? We're going to be eating when we have that meeting. So, and then like team stuff. I do a little more with teams things, but I found as I got into like global roles, I was getting pinged so frequently that the notification bell became a trigger, right? And I know certain people who have been on Slack channels, for their companies have the same problem. So I turned off that notification too. And it's just been awesome. Now, does that mean I'm not doing my job? No, that does not mean I'm not doing my job. I am completely doing my job, and I have very frequent check-ins to the people that matter as to whether or not they think I'm doing my job the way that I should be. And the answer is always yes. So for those of you who are feeling super agitated and nervous right now, after hearing me explain this, I'm glad you've recognized that feeling in yourself. Now go do something about it. And that's probably a sign that you should probably execute some of this stuff and just chill a little. And go get lunch.
I've stopped taking lunch since not being on your team or working with you, Dave. I just the number of lunches I take has plummeted.
Well, let's fix that. Let's fix that. Yeah.
Alex, any thoughts on that stream? I've also got a new one too.
Yeah, tough with a new role. Got that imposter syndrome pretty hard. So it's always like, trying not to ever mess up. At the same time, like, how do you know where your baseline is? I mean, I realize I'm always tough on myself too. So it's always like I realize I have an underlying bias. But there's always a point too of like, how do I kind of show progress, especially in an organization of constant change? And it's pretty difficult to actually get something done when the organization keeps radically shifting, basically. Even within 6 months, it's like hardly the same. So some of those notifications and stuff is like the only way, but it's really funny because my direct report and I were talking about this recently of email doesn't really seem to work. Like the number of emails that just go unanswered is pretty frequent. So instead it's like you always have to set up a meeting, which nobody likes their calendar being full of meetings, but at the same time, how else are you gonna get their attention? Or Teams chat has been like the best way to get things done, but it's also the most annoying. I mean, it's like it's also easy to get into like casual conversations that like just keep on going and stuff like that too, of like, trying to get back and refocus back to work where at least the meeting ends at a certain point.
That is one of the benefits of working in person again, is that I can, now granted, I look the way I do, so that helps. But like going into somebody's cube and just saying, hey, I have a question for you. And if they ignore you, just standing there. Say, hey, you want to get rid of me? Answer my question.
Yeah. I think that's a struggle. I know I've heard it from enough people, and I definitely feel it myself too, of, when is it a meeting? When is it an email? When is it a chat? When is it all these other things? And then the misuse or perceived misuse of one medium for the other. I don't know. I think everybody's all over the board, and it's kind of gets down to company culture, but also people's own expectations and experiences too.
This is exactly what I'm talking about, guys. Outsource all that little nonsense.
Yeah.
Just outsource it, right? Do I make it a meeting? Do I make it a thing? I don't know. Ask ChatGPT.
I got to get more into using voice to write my emails, because the number of times I've had an email basically written in my head over and over again. I finally actually write it, and then I finally actually send it. Those last period and the last two chunks are a little bit too large. It's like I already know what I need to say to the person. It's like three things. And it's like, oh no, I'm going to spend forever crafting this email.
That was a big unlock for me, actually. I had a previous manager who was like, okay, it doesn't matter if you got it done, if nobody knows that you got it done. I said, okay, that's fair, right? Especially if you want to move up in the organization, right? You have to market what it is you've accomplished, and make sure that everybody knows it, right? But yeah, doing the voice to text in Word and then copying, pasting that over into Outlook was a complete game changer for me, because it literally was the act of typing was preventing me from sending all of the emails I probably should have. Yeah. It's like I have all these microphones in my studio. It just makes sense that I can talk a little more for it. Along these lines too of automating things, I've been trying, like last weekend before, I've been trying make.com. I know we talked about this a little bit a number of episodes ago with N8N or Make or some other things where you can finally like connect things together. And I gotta say, after 3 days of playing with it, the promise is there, but there are so many sort of optional things that in order for the automation to work properly, you need another subscription, or you need access to the API, which is a higher level of subscription than you have, or, all these different things where you're just like, oh, okay, so I'm smart enough to know how to do this and that this is a thing, but I don't have the capability to just spend my way to the solution, And of course, halfway through the 3-day time frame of trying everything out, was like, is this actually better than me just doing it? Because this feels a lot longer, but it was interesting. I don't know if you can see the whiteboard behind me, but I did have things mapped out, and I did have a realization that a Google Sheet was sort of capturing a lot of the information and was sort of the central hub for things. I'm like, okay, well, if I tweak things a little bit, then I could leverage that to drive all of these other things. But, part of the 3 days was standardizing the information too, right? I mean, that's one of those problems with the automation, is having all of these things sort of standardized so that the robots know exactly what you meant, and there's no wiggle room, and there's no, this is the way that, Dave does it. It's no, this is the way the robots need it to be so that it just works. And, am I happy I tried it? Yes. Is it done? No. Will I keep going? Maybe. I think even if I could automate like 1 or 2 things, even just to automatically update the table, that could be really cool. And that would save me a bunch of copy paste time, right? but I'm also not about to spend $200 a month for enterprise GPT. Like, no, just not. I'm just not. So I know, Alex, you've been trying to do some automations, and I know you talked about your experience with this before. Are you still doing that? Have you tried anything new recently?
Yeah. Actually, the project I've been working on is this Looker report that pulls in a bunch of different data sources. Been
Mm-hmm.
using ChatGPT 5, which is actually pretty funny because it's just got released and it basically auto selects which model best fits your question.
Yeah.
Some critics or detractors are saying that it's just a cost saving measure for OpenAI because they're kind of pulling different models in. But also the model selection, there was really no naming system before, that kind of thing too.
Right.
So I think there's enough confusion there in the market that's pretty valid too. It's not an agent though, and I was playing around with an agent before, so it's really funny. So I have three chats who seem to have no recollection of each other, even though it's shared memory. One of them's five, one's four, one's 4.0. One of them has browser access, but not agent access. The other one is an agent, but it doesn't seem to have browser access. And then I have five, which apparently it has neither. So ended up like manually, step by step, creating it myself with luckily with ChatGPT kind of tutoring me and teaching me along the way of like I asked it to like teach me like a beginner, like give me all the step by steps of exactly where
Right.
buttons are on the screen. I mean, like give me everything because screenshots would be great, screen share would be great, or something like that, but I don't have that option. So at least descriptive text would be good to try to build this out. And been doing it, but man, it's slow. And I was going to bring this up today, but there's a funny Ethan Mollick is a professor, blogs a lot
Mm-hmm.
about AI. I mentioned him before, but he has a blog recently that was called something like around a beautiful mess, and it's the model is a business model which is called the beautiful mess, and it came from this idea of or this experiment that a college did with the business of mapping out exactly how they built their thing, how they actually manufactured their item, and they decided to map out everything. So they the photos of it. I mean, you say you got a whiteboard, you should see the random strings and all the rest kind of thing in the background. The photo alone is beautiful. But it's crazy. I mean, basically there were completely redundant processes. There were shortcuts that were being used actually in the how it's being built. So it's not a shortcut anymore. It's just literally has shifted over to that. I mean, there was tons of things like that and crazy loops and pointless processes and everything else. And then in the end, it made the item.
Right.
So there was a project manager brought the CEO through it, and to use cleaner language, he was like, "It's even more messed up than I thought it was." Like nobody knew how bad it was, and it became this business model talking about basically is modern business is super messy. It's astoundingly messy. Like the process, and if you actually were to actually ever write it down from beginning to end for any project, anything launched, I mean, you'd probably be like, "Why?
Right.
Why do you do all this?" And I think I've been playing around with some AI tools and I've struggled with some that can't do a website rebuild. They can do a website build, and they give you very much what I would call like a Squarespace build of like chiropractor in San Diego, and they give you a
Right.
testimonials page, like it's 5 pages standard. But if I'm trying to reskin like a corporate website that exists in a different tone, better usability, WCAG, accessibility standards, like all these other kind of things being applied to it, that's too far because it's too messy. And that's just so much, it just was so fitting to what I've seen as well of there's so much promise with a lot of these AI tools of what can
Mm-hmm.
exist in a really clean environment. But the moment you throw in like a real world environment, it's like, I can't do that because I don't have admin access of that. I do have access here, and I can use this tool, and I can be kind of scrappy. And it's like
Right.
everything becomes these weird shortcuts and strings through it. I don't know. Tools like Make, I think, are really cool. I was playing around with Zapier and Make for a while, and it was a similar situation where basically it's like, okay, now I can connect these data pieces together, or there's a bunch of blocks in between from me actually ever doing this particular project. And then tech issue after tech issue and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Weirdly, that it runs into job security, to be perfectly frank. I mean, someone's going to be doing this, but goodness knows my boss isn't going to be doing it. It's going to be me.
Well, I was surprised when I was doing the make.com. Like I wanted to be able to take the text that's created by one thing into a transcript and then have that text extracted and put into a sheet, right? Sure. Sounds basic enough. According to the make.com stuff, maybe I'm open to the fact that I might be an idiot on this, and that's fine. The only thing that could possibly do it was Google's Vision Cloud like plugin to be able to extract and format things to then send off into others. And I'm like, that's strange, right? And also when I went to ChatGPT and I was like, can you transcribe an audio file for me? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, I can do it. And I was like, okay. I upload the audio file and it's like, actually, I need to attach to Whisper and I need this and I need that. And I'm like, so you can't. I don't need a technically I could. I need a yes, no. So that's been the really interesting thing where it's like, okay, the tool stack that I have works. And even though I'm playing with it and considering changing certain things, in the next year, it just works. We have it down. So is it worth it to learn the new system at this point? Maybe not.
This is so great. I am in such a different perspective than both of you. First, I have to give a shout out to Tim Harford's book, Messy, Creative Resilience in a Tidy-Minded World. Fantastic book. I think I've reread it twice. And if you like books where each sort of chapter is a self-contained article that explores a different topic, this is one of those, which I very much appreciate because then you can just sort of pick it up every once in a while. And what he talks through are sort of a number of case studies across music, across the tech world, across MIT, a whole range of different case studies in the modern world in which it's the messiness that allows for or opens up the space for creativity, and how that messiness might not be. It might be an important part of the creative process. Maybe it's important for that product to be made. Like you can't get around the messiness. So highly recommend that book. Just if you need a different way of thinking about the messiness of our everyday corporate world. The other thing that's coming to mind is I haven't tried make.com, so full disclosure. And also I think I'm probably a month or maybe 2 months behind both of you in terms of what I'm trying to do with all of my AI use cases. And I think in this case, from a mental health standpoint, that might be healthy because I might have tried to do something a few months ago and gone, oh, it's not quite doing it. And then I just sort of let it go. And now I'm trying it again. And I'm going, look, it does the thing I tried to do a couple months ago that I couldn't get it to do. And now it's doing it. This is amazing. So I have a few extra bags around my eyes this morning because I was up super late because GPT-5 launched. But not only did GPT-5 launch for OpenAI, GPT-5 launched with Copilot simultaneously. And the improvement to Copilot has been substantial just overnight. And that's been really cool to see. And specifically, some of the things that I've enjoyed playing around with is, hey, I've had a couple of agents I've created for myself, just doing basic things, right? I'm not trying to have them execute things. I'm trying to have them help me create various assets or artifacts, or help me think through or help me plan, or just like, hey, I can't remember what I did last week. Can you please just give me a recap? And turns out it got much better at doing those types of things. And the messiness is a cool tie-in because one of the things I observed is it got overnight much better at parsing through the messiness that is chats, emails, SharePoints, documents, et cetera, et cetera. And that has just been so cool to see. And even just simple things like helping me create a JSON instruction set to give my Copilot agents so that they become more productive, and perhaps even being more thoughtful about what it is I'm trying to do with the agent than I was, which is both scary and exciting at the same time. That all has shifted just within the last day. So I'm curious your thoughts on GPT-5, knowing that you've reached some frustrations with its agentic capabilities. What are some of the other initial takeaways since it launched yesterday?
Dave, do you have any, or do you want me to run?
Well, yeah, I'll state for the record, I've been in a basketball camp all week. So the farthest I got was reading through Ethan Mollick's newsletter about his experience with GPT-5 and how
it just does stuff.
Yeah, it just does stuff. And how it wants to help you with things, which is great. But having a golden retriever, I have enough of that in my life already, where it's just like, all right, stop trying to be helpful. I love my dog, but seriously. And in that newsletter, the thing that jumped out to me, and I think Alex, what you mentioned it, maybe in a slightly different way, but it seemed that it was selecting whatever models fairly arbitrarily. And the main reason for that was it has to decide how difficult what it is you're asking it to do is, so I'm very curious to play around with that and to see that kind of, play out through things. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I haven't had a chance to sit down with it fully. So Alex, what have you done?
Yeah. It definitely needs refinement. I would put it out there. It's a significant improvement above 4, but it definitely needs some better refinement. If you played with 4.4.0 or any kind of variation on those, they all kind of had their own limit, kind of upper limit, and the more technical or the more detailed a response that you wanted, the more evident that was.
Right.
Like if you looked at 3.5 versus 4, though, I mean that was a huge step change, and I think 4 to 5 has a step change as well. So that there's still improvements in what's being done there, and like the project I was working on, like the descriptions that I was giving was far more accurate. It was far more complete. I've been actually testing a lot of the free version versus 4.4.0, just literally yesterday and the day before, figure out their knowledge base around particular topics. So I was testing them with all these different queries and incognito windows and VPNs and all the rest of the kind of stuff of trying to see can I update its core based knowledge, which is actually still kind of a limitation of these systems of how much they can learn as well. So to answer real quick, I think it's better if it's picking the right model every time. I don't think so. I think it's kind of underestimating, or even sometimes, to be honest, overestimating some of these questions. Like it's taking way longer than it should for some stuff. Other ones it's still struggling with, but 4 would completely fail on it. So it's able to complete things that it couldn't do before. So still a step change, still more to go, but definitely better. I mean, let's be honest, also 4 didn't release that long ago, so I just gotta wait a couple months.
Yeah, it is crazy. Ruthi, to your point earlier on just how fast everything is changing and even just trying to stay up to date. There is a burnout point.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I was thinking about that actually while I was watching my son at this camp, because it's you can't download an app and learn how to do a crossover dribble. Right. You have to just learn how to do it and put in the reps and just do it. Right. And I know one thing that's jumped out at me with your 30, 60, 180 comments before, Alex, I think was you were asking for a 360 review and found out your coworker was using GPT for it,
Oh yeah, long time
right?
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And that to me, that has stuck with me. And I've been trying to figure out why that's bothered me so much. Yeah, I should probably just write a newsletter on it to like get some thoughts down on paper, but like it just seems like a breach of trust, you know? And on the one hand, yeah, okay, cool, we can get all these answers. But what are you going to do about it? It's one thing to get all the answers and to put it out, but if you don't actually know how to use it, or if you don't know how to actually apply it, then we haven't actually improved anything. We haven't moved forward in any way, right? Um, and I was thinking about that with my kid because there's loves basketball, but there's a 0% chance that he gets any taller than like 6'3". Like I will put good money on that statement. Um, so I go to the coach who has coached at a very high level, WNBA and European basketball, and I mean like serious levels. And I just said, hey, for the shorter dudes, what what sort of skill set should we like focus on, or you know encourage more than the other ones, because you're never going to be a rebounding champion if you're 2 feet shorter than everybody else, right? um but that led me down this rabbit hole of going to Gemini and doing a deep research to say, give me the top 20 short basketball players, what made them different, and how could I incorporate that into a practice routine. That was wonderful, and I did that in like 10 minutes, and now I can read through it and figure out how to incorporate that into my son's practice routine. And before any of you email us saying Dave's forcing his kid to do stuff, this is you don't know my kid, so just know that he's driving this for sure.
This
So yeah.
this reminds me of a conversation we had, maybe it was a few months back, about it is not going to give you the questions.
Right.
It will give you the answers, but you have to know the question. You have to know where you want to go. And that, I think, is continuously reinforced with everything I've been working on. The cases in which I have a clear idea of here's what I'm trying to get out within the parameters of what the technology can do. Of course, not, as I mentioned, I don't push the boundaries too much. In the cases where I have a clear idea of here's what I want to do, it's a very powerful tool. In the cases where I'm sort of floundering, it can also be a powerful tool if I'm asking questions of help me how to think through this problem and how I should be utilizing these set of technologies, or how I can even reframe my thinking. It is powerful in that case, but ultimately I know where I want to go. I want to change the way I'm thinking, or I want to get to X point. And I think your example of the 10-minute basketball case just exemplifies that point.
Yeah, because I mean, we've talked about it a lot on the show, and I'm sure we'll come back to it again, but like I think these tools are only as good as where you want to go. If you don't have the goal setting, if you don't have an idea, then they'll definitely help you out, try to formulate an opinion to figure out where you might want to explore. But like you still have to work, right? I mean, it's exactly what I said to the students at the university when they're like, networking's hard. Any way that to make it easier? No, it sucks. Go do it. That's it. That's the advice. Just get used to it, because nobody else likes it either, and that can become your superpower, to be the one that sets up the coffees.
As one more point on this, you need to know where you want to go, and then they're very powerful tools. I do have to share that part of playing around in the last 24 hours with GPT-5 has been the semi-fulfillment of a long-term dream goal of mine, which is to create an application originally I envisioned this to be something you use in sort of a VR scenario in which you're in St. Mark's Square and you have the opportunity to kick the pigeons that are sort of polluting Venice and all of its beautiful sculptures. I didn't ask ChatGPT to be so cruel. Instead, I said I'd like to see a simulation in which you can click and feed popcorn to the pigeons, and the fact that within less than 5 minutes, I could ask it to do that, run code, and see my little pigeons moving around the screen was phenomenal. Like that made my evening.
I'd just like to state for the record, Alex and I do not promote violence against animals.
No, leave the flying rats alone. Come on now.
Exactly, yeah. Or as my niece calls them, city chickens.
Ooh, I like that one.
All right, on that note, with PETA calling, we will we will see all of you in 2 weeks on the next episode. Please go subscribe to the Pathways newsletter. We are adding great stuff, and we added over 100 subscribers in the first week. So thank you to everybody who did that. And we will try to get Alex to share his prompts for you to play around, and we'll put those in the Pathways newsletter. So go get those, sign up for that, and join us in 2 weeks for the next episode. Take care.
Thanks, all.
Cheers.